Hey, Jacqueline, how you doing? You ready for Officer Mike? He's gonna school us on cyber safety. Hey, Donna, how you doing?
That's a plan. That's a plan.
We're gonna give it a couple of seconds, guys, just for everybody to come in. Let's give it a little countdown here. Roll out a little countdown for us to get things spiced up here. If you have any questions for myself or for Officer Mike, you can just raise your hand, or you can also use the Q&A box and he can answer questions there. And let me just do a quick go. Can we do, Jen, can you just send a quick email to the base saying that we're live now with just a link to it? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah, sure. Great. And are we live in all the groups? You said we are, yes.
Yes, we are.
Also share the link in the groups if they want to come into the actual workshop. We could just put that in chat. Perfect.
Okay.
Amazing. Perfect. Well, this is recorded, so we can get started and just kind of like start talking. And if people come in and they have questions, then we can keep going. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Perfect. So if anyone doesn't know who I am, my name is Michelle. I'm from Champions for Our Children. I am the founder of this program that helps parents of children with autism with everything that is related to autism. And I am also a autism mom myself. My daughter, Juliana, was diagnosed on the spectrum in December of 2014. She was nonverbal. She learned sign language. We potty trained her nonverbal. This was the sign for potty training at the time. She got she started making sounds and word approximations to kind of where she is today. And September, we had our IEP meeting on Friday. She is now going from an integrated co-taught general education class to officially going into a straight gen ed class with very minimal support for her 4th grade year. I had no idea that that was possible. And I'm so blessed. I feel so grateful to share my journey because I'm still on this journey with you guys. So I want to bring you guys as much help and support about anything about being a parent. And, my base of people that follow me are mostly special needs parents. And I think this is important for them. But I also think if you have neurotypical children who have access to the internet, who have access to the World Wide Web, and soon maybe this metaverse, that you want to make sure that you are aware of how to make it as safe as possible. So I am happy to have a special guest today. His name is Officer Mike Lemon, and he's going to tell us all about what he does now. He used to be a police officer, and he's going to give us all the deets on his life and what brought him into this industry and give us some education as parents. So welcome, Mike. I'm so happy to have you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And thanks for all you do for all our families. I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem. Great. So tell us about you. Like, how did you get into this? All that good stuff.
Well, I'm not a techie by nature. So the fact I'm doing this stuff there's I guess it was my destiny to do these things. So became an officer in 1996, and people had computers, but they weren't that big. But I made investigations in 2002, and right at that time, computer crimes started happening. And how I got in this field was we're sitting in an office one day in a meeting, and I was the newest detective, and my captain said, "Hey, we're getting a lot of these computer crimes. We need somebody to start actually investigating these things." And so I looked around the room, no one raised their hand, like, "All right, Lemon, you're the one." So that's how I got voluntold to start investigating online crimes. But that really ended up becoming my passion, not necessarily like the cold checks and stuff, but is the internet crimes against children. Because in my view, I've investigated from murders, shootings, rapes, robberies, anything you can think of, we've investigated that. But this is truly two things. One is the most innocent victims that you can have, children. And then two is there's no other crime that really affects a victim like this. You're not going to get your house broke into and start breaking in other people's houses, or you're not going to get your car broke into and start doing drugs or alcohol to help with that pain. But with children, though, they do. And so they turn to alcohol, they turn to drugs. This crime is the only one I know of that causes more crime. And so as I worked in investigations for 13 years, and then started my own company to help other rural agencies investigate these types of crimes, these online crimes against children, because so many different smaller agencies didn't have the training, the equipment. And so if something happened to your child and you called the local law enforcement and they told you there's nothing they can do. And so I'd get these calls from parents like, hey, they said there's nothing they can do. I was like, well, they can do something, but they don't know what to do. They haven't been trained. They don't have the equipment. So really, there's nothing they can do. And so we started doing around 24, 25 different agencies in this part of the state. I live in Kentucky. And so we started working with those agencies. And during that time, we got asked to come in and do trainings in schools. And so we're doing a lot of trainings in schools, working with agencies, and really had to come to a fork in the road that I either had to continue helping law enforcement or work on prevention. And in my mind, there's no real choice. We jumped in prevention, dropped all of our law enforcement clients the next year, and have been going strong since then. I've added another trainer, and we've trained around 56,000 parents, students, and youth involved professionals in the last since 2018, which includes COVID, which was a slow year for us. But really, the goal we have is really our passion. It's our mission to help educate parents, all parents, whether it's your child by birth, or it's child through adoption, through maybe the foster care system, whatever it is. We want to help parents make better decisions, because when you make better decisions, you make smarter decisions as a parent, then that affects your child. And the problems we see right now with kids online, and we can go into stats here in a minute, but the problems that we're seeing are that the parents are kind of letting children go because they feel like they're left behind. They feel like the kids are out teching them, the kids that are online, they just don't understand it. And they some parents have an idea that maybe it's kind of safe. Well, maybe TikTok is just a bunch of funny videos, or Snapchat just some funny filters. And that's true. That's true. But they don't understand the other side of it and the things that our kids are experiencing. So what I kind of thought about today is, we've got around, 20 minutes or so, is kind of really work on some mindset. And then I'll give you all some tools that you can actually use to implement some of these things we're talking about. And so one of these things is that parenting someone online, or a child who is online or has online access, is no different than parenting them in the real world. We just have to have the right mindset for it, right? So if you have your child, say their bedroom, right? They have a bedroom window. As a parent, we make sure that window's locked, so they don't get out or nobody else gets in, right? And so we can think of an app, we can think of a game as just another window in the child's room. And so when you look at it like that, how many windows do you want in your child's room? And so many kids today are on, like I just did a training actually on the other side of the state. I've been driving for about 8 hours today. And I was asking the kids, and these are fifth graders going into sixth grade. So I was talking to them and I was asking them, what apps are you on, the different apps. And probably 90% of the kids are on 4 or 5 different apps: Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And so there's no really way, if you're not up on these apps, to really understand what each of these apps are and how to use the parental controls, and really kind of what are the ways that predators can use these things. Now, if just as an example, obviously with Snapchat or TikTok or Instagram, there's a lot more private messaging that can happen. Whereas YouTube, there's not as much ability to message somebody, but you can still leave comments. You can, if they're live, you can have that live conversation with them, and you can send emails back and forth. Say, hey, here's my email me. Go off of YouTube into another one. So just first, as mindset is realizing that every app that you have, your child has, is another window that you got to make sure is locked. And if it's not, and you got to go to the point number 2 is, if you had a knock on your door, right? And there's 50 men standing outside, and these men knock on the door, you open the door, and there's 50 men standing there, and they say, hey, we'd like to go up to your daughter's room. We'd like to go up to your son's room. Would you let them in there? Absolutely not, right? But when the kids go to bed at night, they have their phone, they have their tablet, they have their gaming system. And so they don't have access to 50 people. They've got access to 5 million people, right? And so just in today, right, I asked, one of the questions I ask in the training with the kids is, who has a phone, tablet, or gaming system? Probably at 5th grade, probably about 90% of those kids raise their hand. I'm like, who has that when they go to bed at night in their room? Not one kid lowered their hand. So every single kid has their phone, which has full access to the internet, has their tablet, has their gaming system in their room with them. And so when we talk to parents, it's like, what's the good that can come out of that? And you think about it, I've heard, well, there could be an alarm, alarm to wake your child up, or they like to listen to music. And I was like, okay, well, they've got a $1,000, $2,000 phone. You can buy both those things on Amazon for $50, right? Takes care of both of those. What's beyond that? And there's really no real good answer. If your child's not, remember the old show, Doogie Howser, where the kid was a doctor at like 16 years old. And he was on call. Well, if your kid's not on call, then they really don't need to have a phone in there. So what we tell parents is a simple thing as this, is when the kid goes to bed, put the phone to bed, plug it up in your room, and a couple things can happen. Is one, they're actually going to get sleep. And if you talk to your teachers and talk to how many kids go into class and just crash out, and when they talk to them, they say, well, I've been up all night online, I've been up all night gaming, or maybe I've never even slept. I dropped my controller and put on my book bag and walked out the door. And so one, they're going to sleep. And I've got 5 kids of my own. I've got I got a set of 10-year-old twins, an 8-year-old, and a set of 6-year-old twins. So you can't have 2 sets apparently. And I know how they get when they get tired. They get cranky. They're very good kids, very well-mannered kids. But they can get very cranky when they're tired. Now, if they go all night without sleeping for several days, it's going to be some problems, And so one, I think you're just going to have a rested child. 2 is you're going to know that nobody is going to be able to contact your kids when they're in the middle of the night. Because if you kind of put your predator cap on, right? You get to put your predator cap on and think like a predator. When is the best time to contact a child? 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 a.m.? It's 2 a.m., right? Mom and dad are asleep. No one's watching. They're in their bedroom alone. And that's the best time to contact them. So predators won't be contacted. Bullies won't be contacted. Now, if you look at the mental health issue we are, and I'll say that we are in a mental health crisis with our children. And when you look at the stats, when you look at the number of children who are diagnosed with depression, you look at the suicide rates of children, they're steady for about 20 years. And then 2007, when the iPhone came out, it starts going up and continues to go up today. And so I think there's a correlation. I don't think social media and cell phones cause it, but I think it puts fire or gas on that fire. So if your child has body issues, if your child has depressive issues, if your child has the other issues, it's just gas on that fire. And so that's number 2. Number 3 is if you're going to allow your child to go, if you're going to put another window in their bedroom, right? You got to make sure you got to know before they go, know what they're doing, know where they're going, and know how to monitor that before you give it to them. Because we see so many parents who call us in so many situations where we're helping families when they want to figure these things out after something bad happened. Well, I'm glad parents want to do that. That's great. Get involved, make sure your child's safe, but your child's already been harmed at that point. You can't undo those things. They can't unsee what they've seen and deal with what they've dealt with. So we got to make sure we know how to do that before we actually kind of jump in the pool and say, all right, you can have these apps. And so there's really a simple way, and I'll shoot the link down here. And this is I don't know if I can share my screen.
Yeah, I did it. I fixed it for you. Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Can y'all see that?
Yep.
This is it's just a PDF. It's very, very, very simple. Right. But the PDF is kind of like a step-by-step guide. So there's links in here to go to videos and watch these different things, but it's step-by-step on how to make a contract. And here's really why the contract is important, is it sets those expectations of your child, it sets those expectations of yourself, and really gives accountability. And then the last thing it does is give them the ability to kind of grow. Because in the end, we want a child to be when they turn into adulthood, to have as much freedom as they can have, right? So there's picture me, but I'll get down here to the good stuff. And so things you're going to need really step by step. So all these resource videos will go to a video explaining these things. So these are things to watch before you sit down with your child to set up a contract, really for you to go through and set up and figure out what apps you want to have. And there's websites in there like it's a Barkomatic, and it'll give you step-by-step instructions on every single type of app or gaming system, computer, even like your Roku TV or Amazon Fire Stick. It'll give you step-by-step instructions on how to use parental controls on that. And so again, you got to know before they go. Determining the amount of screen time is a big one for that, and really to know how to use parental controls and the overview of how to set up the contract. And so I've got a contract here you can just print out and use, or you can really create your own, whatever you want to do. But the first part here is really how are they going to conduct themselves, right? And here's a big thing is know their current username and password. Because unfortunately, we've worked many cases where children go missing. And I don't think if you've scrolled through Facebook or Instagram and you've seen, hey, missing child post, I don't think there's one of those posts that doesn't involve social media and either the planning or the kind of the execution of them running away. And so when we go to a house and there's a missing child, if we can get into their social media and find that chat, then we will be able to really find them a lot quicker compared to if we got to send out subpoenas and try to figure out what their username and password is. It's going to take hours compared to really when minutes matter. And so, you having that username and passcode are very big. And we have a sheet at the end where you can write that down. And who they communicate with, you can set up. We'll talk about that part in here in just a second. But you can set up who your child is allowed to talk to, or if they're allowed to talk at all. If they can download apps, no images, right? Don't harass. You're going to put your phone up. This is part of the contract. They want the phone, they want the gaming system, they want the tablet. They're going to put that up at night, and so you have that, and so that's in the contract as well. And here is probably the biggest one for parents. So that's their side. The next side is the parent side for you. And so is that if they come to you, right, and they say, hey, this bad thing has happened, or this person is trying to contact me, or they're asking for pictures, don't freak out. Let them know that they're going to be able to keep that, but they're going to make sure that they're safe, and you want them to be able to come to you. You got to have that open communication because if they don't, I've worked one case in particular where a child was exploited for 3 years, from 14 years old to 17 years old, by a group of men, all because she was afraid. She's more afraid of losing her phone than she was of being a victim to their exploitation. Okay. And so, if in several different cases we worked where that same thing has happened, they're more afraid of losing their phone than being victimized. Even if they send something they shouldn't send, they know that they eventually can get it back after they make sure you're safe and after they earn it back. And then more freedom, right? So you can expect their phone for at least that many times a year, whatever you want to do it, say once a month or once every 3 months. I suggest at least 3 months, so it's on your mind, on their mind. And then they're gonna get whatever you decide, whether it's more screen time, maybe a different app. That's what I use with my kids. Is they have certain apps they can use, and they can trade them out, so they can have 3. And so we get rid of one, we can add another one on there. Then sign it just like a real contract. And this here is the sheet for the username and password that they can have. And that's really the big part of that is really being able to have that open communication, set those boundaries up front. And then that way you're going to be dealing with a lot less problems in the future. I will tell you this, with my children are young, they use devices. So we use like an Amazon Fire and or Amazon Fire tablet, I think it's called. And then we use they have whatever little handheld game things, but we do not allow them to be online. And so you can allow your child to have access to the games, but you don't have to allow them to be online. And I know there's some platforms that you have to be online, but then you can still just lock it down. And that Barkomatic, which is in that the contract, will help you lock that down to where they can't connect with other people. And so really that's the mindset is there's no different raising a child in a real world and versus really raising a child online is critical to make sure that you don't feel overwhelmed as a parent. And then set those expectations up front. If you can do those two things, your child's gonna be so much safer. And I kind of end with this. If you do nothing else, you don't remember anything I say tomorrow. If you can just make your child's account private, they're going to be so much safer than almost every other child. And that's the big thing when we go into train kids is we ask them to take out their phone and make their account privates right then. Because if they can make their accounts private, the stranger predators are not going to be able to contact them. And so I think that's about set expectations. Know before you go. I think that's what we got here. So right at 21 minutes.
Oh, all right. Amazing. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions for Officer Mike? I know I already do. And I guess my questions are this, because I'd like to think I have a handle on what they're looking at and the protections. I can't tell you how many apps I've downloaded for my son that I'm going to delete immediately because I didn't think of it as the way that you said it with the windows. Every app I'm downloading for him is another window of an opportunity for somebody to contact him. What are your thoughts on YouTube Kids? I know a lot of our moms have children that let our kids have access to videos on YouTube Kids.
Yeah, YouTube Kids, I think of apps as kind of on a slider from safer to unsafe.
Okay.
TikTok would be the unsafe. Snapchat would be the same way, but YouTube Kids is a safer app. Now they have some restrictions, but here's the problem. With YouTube, they've got over, I think it's right now it's like 600 or 700 hours of video getting uploaded every minute. So in the time that we've just been talking here, there's about 12,000 hours of, if my math's correct, about 12,000 hours of video that just got uploaded. They don't have the ability, they don't have the staff to go through every single one. And so what they rely on is AI. And so just to see if they can pick up words or phrases or pictures on there. And they rely on people hitting that report button.
Got it.
And so YouTube Kids is safer, but in the same time is that things can slip through. And usually it's not what they're watching. The same thing with YouTube. It's not like you put a video down in front of them and they're watching a video. It's usually not that video. It ends up being the suggested videos or the videos that they play after that. And I don't know how many, I've been in the same situation with my kids and they're just watching YouTube. They like with Mark Rober. I think he's a NASA scientist who turned YouTuber and does all these crazy experiments. So they like watching him. And so I left the room and I came back in and I can't remember what it was, but I was like, I can't, we got to turn this off immediately. So,
yeah. And that was YouTube Kids? That was YouTube Kids?
That was regular YouTube.
That was regular YouTube. Got it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
YouTube Kids is better and it is safer,
but yeah, if they're uploading,
some of these videos can't
filter through. Exactly. That's my point. So like I've seen that there's like mommy patrol groups that'll actually show you links of videos that got through like whatever AI filters they have on YouTube Kids that had very suggestive content that was inappropriate for children. So that was definitely an eye opener for me to see that happened. And I agree. I think YouTube Kids is probably one of the safer sides because it's not that straight communication component like some of the others. Yeah. What about like a game like Roblox?
Roblox, if you set it to where they can't communicate with strangers, and here's the kind of Roblox itself is the wild west for predators.
Oh, wow.
Because it is wide open for kids for them to be able to contact kids and talk to kids. They're obviously not going to say, hey, I'm a 55-year-old guy from Australia. right? Or I'm a 38-year-old guy from Chicago. They pretend to be these younger kids, and so if we can kind of there's in the that Barkomatic, they'll walk you through how to set up the account to where it's private and people cannot reach out and talk to them. And so you can even turn the chat off, period, so they even can't see the chat, because there's a lot of things that go on in the chat. As when Roblox first came out, well, a couple years after it came out, several years ago, a parent asked me to look at Roblox for their kid, and it took me about 5 minutes. And I'm like, have you just started screenshotting the chat? I'm like, is this what you want your kid to see?
Yeah.
And so Roblox can be made safer, but if you don't have those things on, as far as like to turn the chat off, make it private, then it is a wild west of games.
Got it. So from all of like even like a Switch, you would say would be something that, Switch, which is really promoted as a very safe device, still has its gaps when it comes to a potential predator.
Well, depending on how you use it, like that's what the handheld, my boys have a Switch, but they just have you can just play on that Switch. They don't have the one you can connect to the internet, or you can play with other people.
Yeah.
But something like they like Minecraft, and so something we found is that they can play together on our local Wi-Fi. So they don't have to have a server. They don't have to connect to the internet. They can just connect to our Wi-Fi, and then they can connect with each other on that. They can have their own kind of virtual world that they're playing in together without being on the actual full-fledged internet. So there's kind of workarounds in there.
Got it. All right. And then I guess, like, let's say we have a child that has that's had access to their phone and has access to all these apps and whatnot. And they're not telling us anything, but what are the signs if they are in trouble, that they may be getting in trouble with somebody or doing something inappropriate online?
A lot of times we'll see them, maybe if they do use, say they use Snapchat a lot, all of a sudden they're not wanting to be online at all for some reason, or they're withdrawing, or they're not talking to their friends that they've normally talked to, or there's some signs of depression that you're seeing. I mean, these predators are very good at what they do. I mean, they're predators, but in my mind, they're professionals, and they're constantly honing their skills, and they can put that pressure on children. The way I look at it is, I wouldn't send my 10-year-old up the box against like Mike Tyson, right? It's not going to end up well. Well, these predators, they're constantly working out or honing their skills with kids, hundreds of kids, a month or whatever it is. And so they get very good at that, very skilled at it. So they're able to really kind of put that pressure on your child. And so when you see it, your child's becoming a little bit depressed, kind of pulling away from the family, maybe not wanting to use technology they wanted to use before, kind of even being afraid of it, that would be some big red flags for me. Or if they start asking questions that are kind of a little more mature for where they should be. Like I was talking to a lady the wife of a guy I used to work with, and her son was on, I think he was on actually Roblox. And if I'm not mistaken, he was on the autism spectrum. I'm not sure exactly where, but he was on the autism spectrum. But they let him play, and they said he ended up, my mom went down there and noticed the camera was on the screen, and she started talking to him about what happened. And she noticed that he hasn't been wanting to play Roblox, which he's been letting him play for hours and hours a day. All of a sudden he quit wanting to play. And so once he started talking to him, he disclosed that he met somebody he thought was another teen or a young teen like he was. And that person started sending him pornographic material and asking him to watch it and tell him what he thought about it. And then he kind of turned that around to, well, look, you shouldn't be watching that. You're gonna get in trouble if you don't do that. Now you're going to do whatever I tell you to do. And so ended up sending him a link, and he could remotely turn on this kid's camera, and started having him undress in there. And so that mom noticed was, like, he stopped wanting to play this game. It was downstairs in the basement. And so he stopped wanting to even go downstairs, and he started getting real aggressive, real angry. And so that was kind of some of the signs that she was seeing.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. So when you're thinking about all these different ways that children can be exploited online, not 9 times out of 10, is it for sexual nature, or it could be for money, or it could be for.
There is probably an uptick of money, or maybe a combination of those. I worked one case in particular where it was both. So they were exploiting children. They were looking for their kind of target. Most predators have kind of a target age and gender. So they were looking at like 12 to 16-year-old girls, and they were exploiting them, taking their pictures and actually selling them. So they're selling them online through what's called basically the dark web. And so when people were wanting to get more of these pictures, they'd come back and they're getting paid to go back and exploit these girls again. Oh, and sometimes they just say, hey, send me $250 to these girls. Got Western Union. So there is an uptick of strictly just money. So, if you ever, I tell kids this all the time, and it kind of makes an impression on them, is if you ever get a message just, hey, hi, or hello, it's usually a scammer of some sort. It could be a predator, but it's usually a scammer. And so they try to say, hey, or get a message, hey, I'm Mike. So, hey, John, I just got a new phone, and make sure this is your number. And you reply back, no, I'm Mike, you got the wrong number. And, oh, you're so nice, I appreciate it. Could we be friends? And then they go into their scamming of what they're trying to do. I don't think this is necessarily targeted at kids, but it's whoever has the phone.
Got it.
Whoever has that app.
Okay. Wow. Well, this is definitely education. I'm definitely gonna look at that app. So what is that app, that Bark app? It's basically gonna just help us monitor things better and show us how to set everything up, or
what was that? One more time. Sorry.
That app, that Bark app. So what is that? So basically it's some type of app you add to your phone.
So Bark uses artificial intelligence. So it can monitor like their text messages, some of their social media messages, and so to look for kind of like keywords or different tones, or even what they're Google searching. So if they're Google searching, how many aspirin does it take to kill yourself, then they'll send you an alert, says, hey, mom or dad, this is what was just Googled. Need to have a conversation, and here's some tips on having that conversation. But I will say this about apps: is there are no perfect apps. Not because they can't work perfectly, but because Apple and Android won't give them full access. And so, if between Apple and Android gives them much more access. So modern apps are going to work better on Android as a whole. And with Apple, they're considered a more secure phone, but they're in that security. They also don't give these apps the ability to monitor everything. So there's nothing like Snapchat. Nothing really monitors Snapchat very well. Unfortunately, Snapchat's just it's hard to monitor.
Got it. All right, awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Does anyone have any questions for Officer Mike before we wrap? I think this has been very, very helpful. Perfect. So if they wanted to find out more about you and you're going to be offering some membership information, you're going to be offering some programs, how would they find you?
Easiest way would be to go to the Facebook to Cyber Safe Families. And that's where we put out a lot of content. We do a lot of helping parents and really work on the mindset and giving them some tools as well.
Awesome. Great. Well, perfect. Well, is it all right if we put this link to this safety contract in our replay email and share it amongst our social media channels?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, perfect. All right, we'll do that. Well, anybody last call for questions? Anyone have any questions for Officer Mike? Going once, going twice. All right, well, then we're going to wrap. Thank you so much for your time. I think this was so invaluable for all of us. I think a lot of us, including myself, are guilty of giving them a lot of free reign on the electronics and looking at it from that perspective of like every app is another window. I mean, my kid lives in like a greenhouse right now. So we're going to have to button that up as soon as we hang up. But I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you all for what you do.
No problem. You have a great rest of your night.